I'm David Elsie. I'm the CEO of Torque3. We're developing a neurorehabilitation solution that can be used for significantly better recovery outcomes. And while we recognize that our platform has broad application, even in markets outside of rehabilitation, our focus is on stroke. As stroke is the leading cause of disability across the world, including some 80 million stroke survivors globally. This year, in the United States alone, there'll be 680,000 new stroke survivors joining the 7 million that we already have in recovery. Now, these folks are looking at months, years, or even a lifetime of rehabilitation. Yet fewer than 10% are going to achieve a level of outcome that allows them to live an active and independent lifestyle. Now, this is where Torque3 can make a profound difference. You see, our approach has yielded some unique advantages that give us some remarkable benefits. Patients will not only be able to achieve significantly improved outcomes, but we're going to make therapy the best part of their day. And even though they have individual treatment plans, they'll be able to get the same quality of treatment wherever they go. Therapists will be able to reduce tedious tasks on the floor and behind the desks, focusing instead on rewarding skills-based work. And finally, clinics will be able to double, if not triple, the number of patients they can service without an increase in staffing or expansion of their floor space. So of all the advantages that we have that make this possible, the most important is that we can radically enhance neuroplasticity using intense, deeply immersive, task-oriented therapy. You see, the Torque3 platform is a robotic-assisted simulator where the patient works their entire body along with all of their senses and cognitive abilities during treatment. This experience-dependent multimodal integration engages distributed functional brain regions, including the sensory, association, and motor cortexes. Now, we accomplish this using a suite of simulation technologies that operate as an integrated system using our proprietary hardware and software. The entire platform is computer controlled, and every mechanical feature is robotic. And it's these advanced robotics that give us our other prime advantage, or at least our capability for it, and that we can completely mitigate the effects of hemiplegia during treatment. Our system instantly compensates for lateral imbalance between limbs. It delivers a smooth experience as if the patient were unimpaired. During therapy, Torque3 patients will feel whole again. So those are our two prime advantages, but we have 5 other important advantages I'd like to just quickly cover. So we provide injury protection against accidental overexertion. We have integrated pain management through our deep immersion, a technique that's widely used. We are a unified treatment platform that combines the CPT codes of lower body, upper body, grip, visual recognition, and cognitive all into a single therapy session. Our advanced and high level of automation allows us rapid turnaround between patients. It allows a single therapist to manage multiple patients simultaneously. And a big favorite among therapists is it automates progression reports. So all they need to do is review and sign it, and it's automatically formatted for the provider. They can just send it off. And on top of all of that, something that's probably just as important, but will be unappreciated for a while, but will come later, is that we are a platform that has truly objective progression data. All the sensors, all the robotics on this is actually what the performance will be happening from the patients, and we'll be able to map that, some 20 million points of data per session. So who's our competition? Well, the reality is it's a status quo. That's a medical model with modality-specific functions instead of the multimodality we're doing. And how does that look out there in the field? It's personal coaching, primarily on stationary bicycles and treadmills. This is something we've been the same way since like the 1950s. It really hasn't changed much. So there are robotic solutions out there, but they're not really being used for us, and they're not going after sensor motor recovery like we are. They're actually in gait and balance training, as in the Hokama Lokomat, which is an exoskeleton, or some other stuff that's using in the types of balance or occupational therapy. It has some robotics for like the hands. Nothing is really going after the primary sensor motor and cognitive the way we are. So The barriers to entry, we're very lucky. We have, with a computer-controlled robotic solution, we have a pretty deep and wide moat around our intellectual property and the barriers to entry. So I'll be happy to go into this in much greater depth if you're interested. Otherwise, you can see that we're pretty well covered. The target market is the 7 million stroke survivors in the US, or more precisely that 28.5% of that 7 million that has current insurance coverage. That represents a $24 billion market that the insurance providers are currently paying strictly for stroke rehabilitation services. And that's not for drugs, that's not for doctor visits, that's not for medical devices, that's just for the outpatient stroke rehabilitation services. Now, how to get to market on that? How the revenue model and the business model is best illustrated by our go-to-market strategy. I will start out with a limited deployment in the pilot program. And these, we're going to have some fairly exclusive small boutique clinics out. And these are where we'll put our highest level of prototype out to market. And these private pay clinics that are geared toward the exclusive, currently a session, people pay about $250 per session. Granted, this is not widespread, these are wealthy neighborhoods, but we will put 2 to 4 of those in the Bay Area and take advantage of the high wealth neighborhoods and that have older demographics to get going and get started and prove the concept. After that, we use our Series A funding, using that initial traction to do phase 1 and phase 2. There's a lot of overlap between those two, but phase 1 is where we convert our programs actually into torque-free centers. We just add more machines. We make it available at that point for insurance payers, people with insurance policies to come in. Now, I have 1,200 units. We don't even want to, we're not looking at coming close to that. That's just how many units it would take to saturate that market down there. We're probably talking at 120, so a tenth of that units going out there in these types of centers. So almost simultaneously with that is we will go to the inpatient facilities, and we're looking at around 80 units in all facilities in the area around the Bay Area, and they will do a revenue share of these facilities. So we will charge either very low or no money to install, and then we'll do revenue share, taking 25% of what they're charging the insurance company. Now, in the case of a quality of care situation, we will negotiate a flat rate with the hospital. So beyond that, we hit the adjacent areas and directly adjacent to the metropolitan. So we have full coverage of that region, and then pick 1 or more new regions in our Series B and rinse and repeat. And that is how we would expand out. To talk about revenue about this, we originally did talk about, the exclusive private pay. That is we're not sure if that will keep that beyond the initial opening of that. It might be difficult to mix in otherwise as we grow, but it does pay, each individual unit under exclusive private pay brings in $1.2 million a year per platform. Torque-free centers, those actually, when we're talking about with insurance providers, brings in about $500,000 a year. And of course, revenue share when we're talking with hospitals or other outpatient facilities we're working with, that's about $1/8 million per year per unit. Now, if we actually then go beyond that and we look at other assumptions, which would be that clinics operate 50 hours a week, each first session is 1 hour, each session after that's 30 minutes, 85% usage of the equipment, and then the insurance, like private pays $250, but the average billable session of insurance to $100 is currently what Medicare is paying. So that is that's sort of the bottom of the barrel of that one. And if we only count 1 session, then we end up with those numbers up above, the torque-free units, et cetera. So how does that look when we project that out? Well, we take and we say we start out at month 1 with the first private pay clinic, and we slowly grow the clientele over time, add another additional one as it starts to taper off, and then introduce private pay where it starts to flatten out again. That would be us introducing the lower cost. And then as hospital installations, we start to grow. With only 200 units in 36 months, we can get to $100 million a year. So there's a lot to overcome here. There's a huge operational side to this. It makes a lot of assumptions on, obviously customer adoption, et cetera, but the potential is there within a very reasonable number of units deployed. So talk about the management team. Myself, this is my fourth startup as a founder. Previously, most notably of those companies before, was a company called Expletive. The company was known for doing interactive development, design development. And that company did location-based, deeply immersive, interactive experiences. So obviously, this is right in the wheelhouse of not only my expertise, but also my black book of connections that I can call up on and get the right kind of talent involved in this. I exited that company, a very modest exit back in 2014, and went forward and worked with another company for a while, and then started this one in 2016. The Dr. Lacey, our chief science advisor, highlights for him is that he is the former director of neurorehabilitation at Walter Reed. And he was responsible for the largest rollout of technology in DoD history, which was their telehealth care program. He worked at the Pentagon for that. As it relates, he was also responsible for the, I believe, the only large rollout of VR in DoD, which was virtual Iraq and then later virtual Afghanistan, which treated PTSD. You know, brings in a lot of healthcare technology, a lot of experience with dealing with the healthcare technology in the region that we're going to be starting out of. He's very good knowledge of how to deal with technology into the institutional environment. So working with the hospitals, he's got that on the back of his hand, having worked with all these people. So he's going to be really good in the role of chief medical officer. Nevin is our CTO. Nevin, I started working with Nevin in 2003 when I was looking for a simulations expert for Expletive. And when I met Nevin, we hit it off. We've been working on all these crazy projects, typically $1 million plus, but only 6 months to pull it off. Something had never been done before. And we've been working together since. Every single company that I've worked with from that point, I've brought him on board with me. So he's been following me ever since. Pam is our therapy advisor, soon to be our director of rehabilitation. She has 25 years as director of rehabilitation here in the peninsula area of San Francisco Bay, mostly working for Sutter Health. And she directed multiple rehabilitation facilities, oversaw them simultaneously. In the last 7 years, she's been working in private pay. Most of that time, I believe, with Agility Health, which is an exclusive company that works with very high-end clients for whatever their healthcare needs are, their private healthcare needs are. Their claim to fame, I guess, was Steve Jobs, which is where they sort of set the company up for as a premier company. So she's been phenomenally useful at us understanding how at least exclusive private pay works. Walter, if you don't know him from VR side, is a professor out at Stanford, a neurobehavioral scientist. He has 30 years of clinical VR research behind him, and is sort of known in the research world of VR as one of the 3 godfathers of VR. He's been working with it so long. And our business advisor is Martin. Martin is a managing partner at a corporate VC. He was a troubleshooter. Before they brought him on as a business advisor, he was a troubleshooter. They would actually bring him into companies to rescue them, bring him in as the CFO, the CEO, and his primary role, our expertise, was supply management. Really quick, so you understand our strategic roadmap. We are currently at the P1 prototype, which I'll show you a video here. And what we're looking for is to go into the P2 prototype and the P3 prototype for with the seed round. We'll get our preliminary data and then get out into the market. Then with the Series A, we'll start a commercial version, do regional expansion. Beyond this, we're actually globally, we're not looking to expand globally. We're looking to find distribution channels, i.e. licensing, because of legal and cultural differences outside the United States just make it too painful for us to really look beyond licensing. We do have some potential opportunities for that already. And finally, we'll be expanding into new markets. It's a perfect platform for physio rehabilitation, potentially fitness. So right now we're currently seeking $1 million in the seed round with a $5 million pre-money valuation. And I typically run this video during Q&A, so we have something to fun to look at while you guys ask questions.
Well, I have a couple of questions for you.
Great.
I know you said you're looking at creating enhanced neuroplasticity, and one of my questions is, how are you measuring that? And the second one that kind of goes along with that is, what types of clinical studies, if any, have you done so far, and what kind of outcomes have you gotten?
Well, to answer your last question first, we haven't done any studies yet. We need to get we do have planned with the seed round to do some internal studies that will be fairly light. They're going to only be 6 weeks in length, as well as we'll be doing like 50 first impressions, but that's mostly to deal with the relationship of the machine with the therapist and the patient. So once we get into market, we'll start studying that, as well as we have a program that's going to be running in Germany for full clinical trials. But that will take years because it's being run by their university system. So, and so going back now, how we measure it. Now, the interesting thing is I could get into it and I'd be happy to show you how we measure things in the system. But we do have a wealth of information that provides us objective data for improvement. Now, whether you want to assign that to neuroplasticity or not, I think that becomes a more difficult thing to do when, but we can show improvement. So I'm sorry if you're picking up the audio of this. I thought, I recently replaced this video with a smaller version and I forgot to turn the audio off. It's almost over. So anyhow, so getting this system to show the differences from session to session is very easy. What maybe is difficult would be to what we can attribute that to.
Right.
And I believe that over time we will be able to do that. But I think initially our goals are just to show that we attribute this, and likely this is why.
So you're mainly
and that will,
oh, go ahead.
and that will show up in the clinical trial. That's where the clinical trial, where you can show, the current status as a control, and then this as an intervention, and then you can compare the two and see how it is different or better.
So what I think I'm hearing is the machine itself will pick up functional changes as the therapy progresses. But again, to your point, doesn't sound like until the clinical trial you may be doing any functional MRI or other ways of really looking at whether there's true neuroplasticity.
Yes.
Okay.
That's correct.
Yeah, correct. And what it will do is it can detect performance. So in other words, how your body is reacting or how you're performing with your body.
Right.
But it also does contextual, so decision making, because we're measuring inside the environment what you end up doing. So as we learn more and more what to measure, obviously, for example, if you were following that trail, I could tell how well you did that. I could give back a performance rating on how well you stayed on the trail, how much you went off, and then maybe even more about how well you went through corners, et cetera. So there are things we could do to show how optimally you are going, and then so as your decision making. But as far as then using a third party to go in, there are some interesting cognitive tools that could come back that we could use that are already FDA certified. Actually, Tim worked with getting one of those to market, our CSO. And he has recommended that, at least for the cognitive side, that he can do that. He can say, okay, well, we can show this on the cognitive improvement side. But on the sensor motor, I think we have work to do there on showing neuroplasticity, or was it the mere fact that we just use multimodality, or where there's so much overlap that it gets to be difficult to even tell.